Alright, good morning people of YouTube. So we are back again today with another black deck profile. This is going to be my personal favorite build for black in the Bt6 meta. So a lot of people are playing Black Royal Knights and swearing by Craniumon as the sole focus. This is a deck that focuses more on Gankumon. So it is a much more offensive variant, and rather than, be a big blocker that can delete bonds whenever you block, most of the time, if they don't tech around it, this deck is more about putting them on the back foot. You evolve into Gankumon, you clear out all of their rookies, you swing in for multiple security checks thanks to Suneriza, and sometimes even Ganku's own effect, and then you just take the game from there. So this is a much more hyper-offensive deck, and it's something that I vibe with a little bit more, and I just really like it. In testing, it's been performing really well. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into the card choices. So for the eggs, I got the 4 Pagu. I don't really think you need anything else. This deck is fast. It wins somewhat quickly if you can get a stack, and this card ensures that you get more cards in your hands, that you get the pieces for your stacks more efficiently. So I think Pagu is the correct choice. On to the level 3s. We got 4 copies of Suneriza to give you extra security attack and sometimes piercing. If you have one of these in the raising area and then just promote it, and then swing with your big dudes, and then wait to evolve this until after you've swung, then they'll just have piercing, so that that way even if they block, you're still checking security. So this just provides so much pressure, and it's the only expensive card in the deck that is absolutely mandatory to play. Next, we have 4 copies of Chikurimon, because Chikurimon is just an amazing card. Security checks in your standard level 3 lineup are nuts. So it's really nice, and I wouldn't consider cutting it. Next, we got 3 copies of Chumon. Blocking memory blockers are important, especially with Ice Wall being introduced into the format. Chumon will block that if you go for it in security. And, yeah, because Ice Wall's security effect is the exact same as Hammer Spark, so some Gabumon players will be playing effectively 8 Hammer Sparks in their security, so Chumon just gains a lot of value. So, can't play any less than 3 in my opinion. And then I'm playing a couple 2-cost vanillas because they help add value to your board, and you can evolve them for cheap, like go into something like a Tankmon or a Dark Tyranno, and start building stacks that way, or just swinging in with Tankmon is relatively nice. So 2 costs are good for building your board, and I think at least 2 are necessary. So I'm not playing the Reboot Toyagu, and the reason I'm not playing that card is because I'm not playing Craniumon. Craniumon is kind of bad unless you can get the Reboot Toyagu under it, because if it's just blocking, then you can't really swing with it. And I think this deck is more consistent than the defensive Royal Knight variant, because you aren't reliant on having the specific stack. This deck can kind of just go all in with the cards that you draw, and it's really good at cycling to get new cards that you always have a decent selection. So, going right up the chain, we got our level 4s. We got a couple cards that are really cheap to hard play. We play 14 rookies, but this adds to the consistency of the deck. We got 2 copies of Nanimon and a Mechanorimon. So Mechanori is just a generic good blocker. You'll see this in a lot of lists this format, because it just shuts out certain matchups. And Nani is a really great security Digimon. If it comes out in security, you can just start building your chains on top of this card. And, it's an offensive deck, so having more pressure on the board is always appreciated. So we got 2 more security Digimon. These ones are also blockers. We got 2 Shademon. Overall, just a really great card. Next, we got 3 copies of Dark Tyranno and 4 copies of Tank. So I have 7 1-cost to evolve level 4s, which makes Evo lines super consistent in this list. And we have a lot of blockers. This is just a really well-rounded level 4 lineup, in my opinion, because you have just a lot of low play cost, you have a lot of cheap Evos, you have a lot of blockers, you have Tankmon that you can swing with, and this lineup has just been working really well for me, and this is a deck that very much functions as the sum of all of its pieces. even though you play with the cards that you draw, like, it, all of those cards work together so well, and I love what this deck can do. And I think it's a very, very slept-on deck. People immediately just gravitated towards Craniumon, and in my opinion, I think that was the wrong choice. Because what people are doing is they're starting to tech, like, Red Starter Deck Tie, they're starting to tech, like, Forbidden Trident, and now Craniumon has to be, like, 16,000 or 17,000 power in order to block these cards, like Gabubond or Agubond, and that's just not reliable. So, if that's not reliable, then I'd rather just play something else. That's my line of thought with this deck, and I really like the direction that this took. So yeah, we'll just go right ahead with the level 5s. I got 4 copies of Gogma because this contributes to the overall strategy. It makes any of your cards bigger, including itself, and its inheritable will make sure that you trigger your Sunoriza effect. Next, we got 2 copies of Megadramon. This card is also a black Digimon while it's on the field. The only downside about this card is that it is a red Digimon unless it is in play, in which case it is also black. So you can't grab this card off of Memory Boost, and you can't evolve on top of this in your racing area. However, the inheritable effect of plus 2,000 on your turn is absolutely nuts. It makes your Ganku very, very large, and its 6 cost to hard play isn't bad at all. So, really, really like this card. The only reason I'm playing only 2 is because it's a red card, and I can't fetch it off of some of my consistency pieces like Pagu or Black Memory Boost. We got a Mamemon as a 1 of tech. This card can help your Ganku survive, and whenever it dies, it can take down something with it, so that's always fun. It's a great card, and I've just been testing it as a 1 of, but I've been considering bumping it up, but there's not really room to play more than 1, so I really think the level 4 lineup, or the level 3, 4, and 5 lineup in this deck is really solid and just can't be changed, so this is kind of what I got, and this is kind of the flex spot, and it's been working well for me. You could cut this card for like another copy of Warumanze if you don't like the Mamemon, though. Warumanze is an overall important piece in this deck because there are a lot of times that you will be set to 5 memory off of your combination of Tamers, and if you need to delete something, you can just slam this down on the board and then immediately evolve Ganku on top of it. And that's very important. So this is a card that I could bump up to 3 if Mame ever stopped pulling its weight. But Mame is pulling its weight, so I kind of like it in the deck right now. So yeah, I'm playing the 9 level 5s, which is a little bit higher than some decks are going for in the format right now, but again, we have super consistency pieces in our list, and yeah, no, it's been working real well for me so far. So on to the level 6s, we got 4 copies of Gankumon himself. Whenever you Digivolve into this guy, you delete everything in play with the lowest play cost on your opponent's board, which is absolutely nuts if they're playing like Gabubond or Agubond, because then they have a bunch of 3 costs, and then this card just comes down, slams its big fist on the table, and they get sad. And that's just a great time. It's also really good against security control, because oftentimes they will only have like 1 body in play, and it'll be something kind of large. So you just kind of go into this guy and just go, punch it, and that's always fun. So, yeah, really, really like this card. Next, we got 2 copies of Alphamon. This card is very, very much an amazing card in this list. However, it is not entirely necessary. You could play something like Metal Garurumon over it, but overall, I think Alphamon is more consistent. Just because it also triggers insecurity, and oftentimes you can, like, if you have Megadramon under this card and it's 13,000 already, oftentimes you don't need to pay memory to make it bigger, so you can just swing and just gain 2 memory every time you're swinging with this card, and that's just honestly amazing. So, yeah, I really like this. This card helps the deck put on so much more pressure, because it gives access to a certain level of memory management that the deck otherwise wouldn't have. And I really, really like it for what it does. But yeah, that's it for the level 6s. For the level 7s, I'm just playing a 1 of Millennium. Yeah, you could play Zwart Defeat. You could play, I guess, regular Zwart. You could play Chaosmon. There's a lot of things that you could play. But I like Millenniummon because this card puts on a certain amount of aggression that your opponent can't deal with. Because if your opponent is playing something like Security Control, and they do have two bodies in play, you can Gankumon, delete one of them, and then evolve it into Millennium, spin the other one, and then they have to have double options to remove this. And that's always pretty nice. So I really, really like this card. Millenniummon has been putting in work. And if I could bump any card in the list up, I think it would be this card. I would definitely find room to play two. And there's a card that I want to... There's a flex card in the options that I think I could cut for a second one if it stops pulling its weight. So, yeah. I think Millenniummon is important for this list, this format. For the Tamers, we got 2 Izzy and 3 Izzy Joe. Great memory management, and this card lets you draw more cards. This card lets you stack more cards. These cards are nuts. Play these cards. It is important to play more copies of Izzy Joe because this card will just trigger a lot. However, well, especially since you're playing blockers, Bond decks won't just swing their rookies haphazardly into your security like they will other decks because you are playing a lot of blockers because this is inherently a black deck. So yeah, there will be a lot of times where you're just gaining an extra 2 memory every turn. And yeah, if any of your blockers get deleted, then you draw more cards, and drawing more cards is nice. So for the options, we got 2 copies of Black Memory Boost. Major consistency piece in this list, and I think 2 is the bare minimum. You could consider going up to 3 of this card as well, if you don't want to play a second copy of Millennium. But the last card in the deck that is a absolute flex spot is Parabolic Junk. This card is not necessary. I've been testing this very recently, and I have not put in enough work to determine whether I like this card or not. But I did want to include this in the list as an option for you all to consider, because what it does is it says until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Digimon gains on deletion gain 2 memory. So you can put this on like a blocker or something, and if you block with it and it dies, then you gain 2 memory and you get to draw cards off of Izzy Joe. So that's always nice. You can also use it on like a rookie on your turn, swing it into security like with a Hagurumon or something. It's really valuable because what you can do is you can just play this for 0, swing in with this card, and then this dies, you gain 2 memory, and then you can kind of go off from there. So it is good, however, it is completely arbitrary. This is an unnecessary card in this list. But it is kind of a play extender, so I did want to include it. But yeah, that's it for this, everybody. Big Fist Gankumon Turbo is a really, really fun archetype. Like, I think it's, in my opinion, it's more fun to play than just sitting behind a big Craniumon. So if you're a fan of Black and the current style of Royal Knights is not for you, I highly recommend giving this a try. But yeah. Remember to like and subscribe, everybody, because we are trying to reach 1,000 subs. And, yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys want to see next time. Bye, everyone. Oh, quick, before I go, for EX1, this deck gets almost no changes. The one change that you would consider with this list is probably adding win rate 60%, because what it can do is let you evolve into Gankumon for just 2 memory by pitching a card in your hand. And you'll have plenty of cards in your hand. So win rate 60% is a card that I would consider as a 1 or a 2 of, especially since evolving into Gankumon and keeping it your turn can be essential sometimes, and win rate 60% can let you do that. So I did want to put that in as a disclaimer. If you're looking for a deck that is relatively the same, whenever EX1 comes out, this is it. Because you really only need to pick up that card, and it's going to be a very, very cheap rare if you're not going for, like, I don't even think that the alt art for that is in that set. So I think that's like a promo for something. But, yeah, that's all I got to say. Yeah, bye, everyone.